Hi, this is Louise Poynton. There are 1,000 reasons to celebrate this landmark for set-lusting Bruce. Jess's dedication to the legacy of Bruce Springsteen should be recognised and applauded. I, like many listeners and fans, have learnt so much about the boss, the shared knowledge and enthusiasm through Jess's own dedication, keeping the legacy alive. Jessie and I have guested on each other's shows. Mine is the David Cassidy Connections. And many may not realise how both of these musicians have perhaps more in common than most people realise. What is it about the New Jersey boys that makes them stand head and shoulders above other artists? Congratulations, Jessie, on reaching 1,000 episodes, and may you have many, many more glory days.
If it means being in the back row, I'll be in the back row. That's not what bothers me. I do feel bad for the people that say, do you know, I really lost all my options. It took that away from me. So that's kind of my position on it. There were overpriced tickets. It was handled very, very badly. We've all done that to death. I think my final comment to you when we spoke about this on a podcast 7 months ago was, he's going to hit the stage and no one's going to care any longer about the price. And I'm sorry, I'm not telling you what I paid for Orlando. I had a bloody good seat for my show in Orlando, and he walked onto the stage, and at that moment, I would have paid triple.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. Post-COVID, post-Springsteen break, we are recording in March, and I am thrilled that after many long-distance Zoom conversations, that Mark Dempsey is returning to a Zoom meeting, but we have been able to meet in person, hug, break a meal, talk, and fresh from his U.S. tour, Mr. Mark Dempsey is joining me. How you doing, Mark?
Hey, buddy. It was just such a pleasure to meet you. I had a blast. Your reference to my U.S. tour, I had this ridiculous work trip to the US. I was in the US for 6 weeks, and which was no hardship, by the way. As you know,
Yeah.
I've adored visiting the US since I was very young. So spending 6 weeks in the US was tough, personally being away from my family, my wife Catherine, but was a really good kind of joyous thing to do for me.
Yeah.
Good work experience. But the chance to meet you was fantastic. I'll remember it forever, really. We hugged like brothers
We did.
in a random Tex-Mex restaurant in North Dallas. So
yeah, we did. And it was great because you got to meet Gary, who you do
I did.
your podcast, and then Bob and Junior. You got to meet Chris.
Yeah.
And, we had so much fun. You got to see a little bit of your other obsession, the Cowboys, right?
A little bit of the Cowboys. I was staying at the hotel right by the Star in Frisco, so I kind of popped in there a couple of times. That was really cool. But yeah, thank you again for the hospitality, for arranging that lovely meal. And then hey, we got to rock Dallas together the next night.
Yeah. So let's start with, what was your tour dates? Let me talk about when did you, and we won't get into your specifics of your work gig, but I know you sent me a text, or you sent me an email saying, Jesse, you won't believe this. My bosses just reached out and said, we need you to do blank. And it's like, how you take 2 pieces of graph paper and overlay, you're like, the agenda they had for you overlaid certain Bruce shows without
and
you
then
doing any, just right.
Nothing. Nothing. And it got wackier. It started with, hey, we need you to go to a conference in Orlando. Sure, okay, I will. When is it? Oh, early February. So now my brain, back in October, November, whenever this was, I've already memorized all of the dates. My wife and I had said at the start, we had no intention of doing the US dates. I feel very, very lucky. It was quite a privileged position I ended up in. Jesse, we've already spoken about, my wife and I had decided we were going to really invest in doing some European shows. So we'd already booked 8 shows across some of our favorite cities and countries in Europe. We were planning to sit out the US leg. And then I'm told you need to be in Orlando, and a conference that ran 2nd, 3rd, 4th of February, which left me in Orlando on the 5th of February. So I was able to snag a ticket to Orlando, which was the 3rd show of the tour. And then from there, just briefly reach out to a few clients, go to another couple of conferences, spend some time in the US. I used to come over to the US all the time before COVID. It was just a chance to kind of reconnect with some of my clients and colleagues. And then the 2 very specific things I absolutely had to do was be in Houston on 7th and 8th of February. I had to be in Houston, which allowed me to, manage my way up to Dallas for the 9th to see you and the 10th to see Bruce. And then I absolutely had to be in Seattle, of all places, on the 27th of February. So it's just a shame that, Bruce's tour didn't intersect with the other cities I was in. But anyway, I got to see 3, which was incredible. So Orlando, then Dallas, then Seattle. What about you? What were your 3? I know we were together in Dallas.
So I ended up, we had tickets for Dallas and we went. Thrilled with, we'll talk more about the set list, but I was thrilled.
Yeah.
Then in Houston, on that next Tuesday, we went, and it was amazing, had a great time. And then Thursday, I went to Austin by myself, and a wonderful friend through Facebook, reached out and said, I have an extra ticket. No cost to you, just, someone gave me a ticket to go see Tampa show for free. I'm paying it back. And I went, wow, okay. So I did send her a Set Listing Bruce t-shirt. So went to Austin, and then the plan was to be in Tulsa, February 21st, both Linda, Chris, and I. That was going to be our second show. And then Friday night, I started feeling bad. Saturday morning, woke up positive for COVID. I'm going to say I got it from Jake. And so that wiped me out. So we missed Tulsa. Luckily, the Airbnb we were staying at gave us half our money back, even though they didn't have to, because it was very short notice. He was very kind. He was excited. He had never seen Bruce perform live, so he was planning to go to the show too. And then I did not buy the insurance with the Ticketmaster tickets, because I'm not going to miss a Bruce show.
Why would I not go?
Yeah. And so I had a couple people nibble, and finally a guy said, look, if they're still available, my dad, my mom, and my sister have never seen him. How much do you want for the tickets? And I said, I'm not going to charge you anything. I said, because if they really wanted to go, they could go and pay $40 each to see a ticket. I said, so, if I could get anything, I would want you to convince them to join me on the podcast to talk about the experience.
Nice.
Or at least send me an email or a voicemail. He said, well, I don't know if I can get him to do that. I go, no, I said, I'm just saying that would be really lovely. So I transferred the tickets, and he said that his family was thrilled. So, and Lynn and Chris were all like, well, at least they didn't go to waste. They were all like really happy that someone went. And so, Linda ended up seeing him twice, Chris once. And, I can't wait to start getting into you with what we're seeing and what we're doing. So,
Yeah.
So we've each done 3 so far, correct?
Yeah, 3. I did 3, you did 3. Hey, and by the way, just that point you said about, hey, I'm transferring the tickets to you, and he given one to someone else, and I'm seeing and hearing more of that on this tour than I think I've ever heard before. It's, as I think I mentioned to you when we were talking about tickets 6 months ago, I've been able to get a couple of members of my family and a really, really great friend from Canada into a couple of shows. I got the tickets for them, and I've said, hey, they're on me. I'm just delighted you're coming. We were out with some friends in Seattle just before the Seattle show, and 3 or 4 different people had some stories about, well, I've ended up with a spare to this. I've just given it to a buddy for free because I just want them to see Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing more of that this time around than I think I've ever heard before. We talk a lot about the community of Springsteen and the E Street Band. I'm seeing that this time more than ever before, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, so I want to talk the good, but let's talk the bad just for a little bit. There
Sure.
remains to be a small but sometimes vocal group that he's sold out, the tickets are too expensive, he's forgotten where he came from, it's just ridiculous, this is wrong, despite whatever facts you try to put in front of them. That, Tulsa, you could get in for $40.
You could have walked in for $8 half an hour before the show started, right?
Right.
In a couple of the venues.
Yeah. Houston had very cheap tickets. Austin not. Now, he had not been in Austin in years. And the Moody Center is a brand new. They have had very few shows there. It's a brand new arena. It was beautiful, great acoustics. I ended up being in the back of the stage, which was, I almost think that's one of the best ways to see the band.
It can be. It can be.
Yeah. So I think that it is impossible, and I've said this from the beginning, not everyone can go to the show that they want at the price they want to pay in the section they want. That is just impossible. So if you broaden your search, and it's still going to be, it may be impossible for you to go to a show you want to go to because there's too many people who want to go to that same show. But there is other times where, well, I'm not going to go if it's nosebleed. Okay, that's your choice. I get it if you don't want to do that. But you can't say that's Bruce's fault. I just saw somebody talking about how because of their circumstances financially, they can no longer afford, so therefore they're done with Bruce. Like he's priced himself out of the market. I'm like, hey, I have been points where I've been unemployed where the idea of going to a show would have been ridiculous because no, I need the money for my rent, my mortgage, for my power. But that's not the artist's fault. So there's my little soapbox. Give me your thoughts, because we've had discussions about tickets in the past.
We have. My thought is this. It's all very well to say, just wait and wait and wait and pick up a ticket with 2 days to go or a day to go or on the day of sale. But then you have to be able to get to that city, right?
Yes.
Or you're just waiting for him to come really close, and then it gets more random. And one of the things that I've talked about with you and with people all around the world sitting on the floor of a pit is the planning, right? The loving of, I'm going to plan to go to this city and I want to get the tickets now because I need to get the plane fares before they go up, and I need to book into a hotel before the prices go up. So I don't begrudge Bruce the money, not a cent of it. But there is an element to which, if you can't plan 9 months in advance to then be able to get the cheap flight or be able to book a train or a hotel at a reasonable price, it's that extra bit, Jesse, that I think people then really get. They feel screwed, right? They feel actually, do you know what? I'm in danger of overpaying for that ticket. So now I'm going to have to wait. Now, by the time I've waited, all the hotels in the area have gone up and tripled in price. And the flights to the city have gone up and tripled in price because I waited 6 months. Now I'm actually really restricted as to where I can go. And I just have to hope there's going to be a $50 ticket left on the day. So that's where I feel people, I have some empathy or sympathy with that feeling of, oh, it really screwed me. I couldn't go to the shows I wanted to go to. I ended up just grabbing a cheap ticket. I'd have to be at the front as much as anyone else. If it comes to being in a Springsteen concert or not being in a Springsteen concert, I'll hang from the rafter, right, or stand on the top of the roof.
Mm-hmm.
If it means being in the back row, I'll be in the back row. That's not what bothers me. I do feel bad for the people that say, do you know, I really lost all my options. It took that away from me. So that's kind of my position on it. There were overpriced tickets. It was handled very, very badly. We've all done that to death.
Yeah.
I think my final comment to you when we spoke about this on a podcast 7 months ago was, he's going to hit the stage and no one's going to care any longer about the price.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I'm not telling you what I paid for Orlando. I had a bloody good seat for my show in Orlando, and he walked onto the stage, and at that moment I would have paid triple.
You know, and I do think years ago, I'm going to go on a tangent, but hang with me. We'll get to the point. You know, I've struggled with my weight my whole life. And so, you know, I've gone different things. And so I remember being at a Weight Watchers meeting, and the counselor that's leading the meeting says, we do the wrong things. You want a piece of cake, and then you either eat the cake and then feel guilty that you cheated, or you don't eat the cake and you're mad that you didn't get to eat the cake. She goes, try this. Eat the cake and be happy, enjoy it, be glad that you had the cake, and then get back on your regular schedule. Or don't eat the cake and be proud of yourself that you didn't eat the cake, that you stayed on your plan, and move on. So I think that if you absolutely need to be at a show in Pittsburgh, you get the tickets as soon as you can, and you're like, good, I have tickets. I can now make my flight arrangements. I can now make my hotel arrangements. I can make my travel arrangements. Or nope. Like for this second round, I've not bought any tickets.
Sure.
Right. I'm like, you know, I had 3. I was supposed to get 4. I haven't. And if I end up missing the whole second leg, okay, I missed it. But I'm not mad at myself. I'm not regretting that I didn't get a ticket. I wasn't a verified fan. I was like, no, I'm going to wait and see. And then is there rumor that, oh, Phoenix, they're not selling very well? Okay, maybe Lyndon, Chris, and I can go to Phoenix. Maybe, you know, right? And so I think that would be my counter to, I totally agree with you. Like if you, I can't make arrangements unless I get tickets. So if you have to overpay a little bit to have that certainty, that's part of the price of paying so that you can have that certainty. And, you know, Dale Hosick was the guy, I met him before the Dallas show, and then we met before the Houston show. Dale's been on the show, and he said, that's the deal, isn't it? You only can wait if you don't absolutely have to be at the show. And if you absolutely have to be at the show, you're going to pay what you have to pay. So, yeah.
Just case in point, well said.
Yeah.
That third leg of dates now back in North America.
Yeah.
my 50th birthday, they're in Vancouver, which is one of my absolute favorite cities in the world. In Canada, as you know, I lived in Canada for 5 years.
Yeah.
The moment I see that date come out, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to. And I actually made myself go, no, you're not. You're not going to have to. You're not going to have to do that. You're about to have an incredible summer. Let's make some good decisions. Tickets are available. You found out, to your benefit, tickets are available a couple of weeks before the shows. If you wait even longer, tickets are available in some random cities, pretty good. They're dropping some. Yeah. I actually went through a process that was very different to last year when all the tickets went on sale. That was, okay, let's think about this. You don't absolutely have to be there. You've had a ridiculous February. You're going to have a great summer on the road, meet friends, see European cities. You do not absolutely have to be in Vancouver just because Bruce is there on your 50th birthday. Let's wait and see. So I agree with you. I agree with you.
And now, and you're right. Yeah, that's really good. All right. Let's flip to something happy, and then we'll kind of talk about afterwards. So, I don't know in the past let me put it this way. I feel like since we did Broadway, that this tour seems to be, he is weaving a story.
Yes.
Much like he did on the My Home to You, right? Like he told stories, he played different songs. And I remember a guy was on the podcast, and Ron Martz, and the writer, and he said, we know he's a good storyteller. Why are we surprised that he's able to communicate his story by weaving in stories and songs?
Yeah.
So I think, and this is just my opinion, I'd love your feeling, is this is more than just a concert set list. He is portraying a story he and the E Street Band want to share with us. Am I overthinking it?
No, you're not. So I'll give you a quick bit of context. I avoided every rehearsal set list I possibly could. As soon as I knew I was going to that third night of the tour, I realized this was a unique opportunity to go and be completely surprised by the placement and the selection of every single song. I saw a couple of the very, very first Jersey based rehearsal nights, but paid no attention to it, looked at nothing in terms of all of the main kind of structured rehearsal shows, avoided all set lists from the first two nights. So I arrived in Orlando and saw the show on February 5th in Orlando, literally having no clue what was about to be played. And I will tell you this, in the cab ride back to my hotel after the show, my overriding sense of emotion, of connection to the show was the most beautifully put together set list I've ever seen him do. It was clearly structured to let us know how he is feeling, what he is thinking, the mindset he is in about his life, his career, his friends, his family, his experiences right now. Last Man Standing into Backstreets reduced me to tears in Orlando, and then again in Dallas, and then again in Seattle, right?
Yeah.
That's beautiful, right? I don't think he's ever put two songs together in a more clever, pointed, dynamic way than Last Man Standing with what he says into Backstreets. And the songs were written, one was written in 75 and one was written in 2022.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and they just feel like they tell the most perfect story.
A lot of people, Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say a lot of people like meeting into Jungleland, right? Meeting into Jungleland. Oh, that 1-2 punch, right? But and I get that, and and I'm on the record about my mixed feelings about Jungleland. But you brought that up to me the first time, and we were we were at the dinner, right?
Yeah.
And I every time during the shows that happened, the one of my favorite moments in the River Tour, the one that just recently happened, was Independence Day.
Yeah.
Because of the idea that Bruce is now singing a song he wrote about his relationship with his father, and he now is older than his father was at that time, and he can now see it from the father's perspective.
Yeah.
It was a very touching moment to me. I think the idea of Last Man Standing and then the connection to a young man's, right? The Backstreets will be there, till the end, is a powerful 1-2 punch.
Yeah. It was just wonderful.
Yeah.
That's been one of my favorite moments of all three shows, and is up there in my top moments of any shows I've seen. Beautifully constructed.
Yeah.
I think the opening 6 songs, and I know he's taking a bit of an online battering for the lack of change.
Yeah.
But actually, I'll say this: if I think back about the reunion tour, the Rising tour, there were some pretty static set lists at the start there. We forget very, very quickly.
Yes.
He generally eases in with a few changes over the course of the first 10, 11,
Yeah.
12 shows. So I'm sure that will change a bit. I think the arena tour in the US is going to stay fairly consistent because he has a message. He has
Yes.
a story, and he wants everyone to see that story, and experience that. As you get into Europe, as you get into multiple shows in the same city, as he comes back to the US, I think that will change. Two quick thoughts about the set list. The No Surrender, Ghosts, Prove It, Letter to You. By the way they've slightly stripped back Letter to You feels like it's slightly slower, slightly more specifically stated. Shout out to how Nils Lofgren's acoustic guitar sounds on that the whole way through it. I listen very intently to the way Nils is playing, how they've got Nils in the mix, and he sounds beautiful on that Letter to You every night. And then suddenly into kind of another like 1-2 punch, Promised Land, Out in the Street, just intertwining brand new thought, right? Ghosts, Letter to You, with 1970s, 1980s thought that really is saying the same thing about friends, family, connection. That opening 6-pack is just beautifully constructed. And everyone's shouting for it to change, but actually I'll take that on a regular basis, because they are very powerful rock and roll songs that make you think about your experiences, your friends, your family. I love what he's done there. I'll also say this: I'm very glad I got to see Night Shift and Don't Play That Song in Orlando and Dallas. But in Seattle, Curtis King was out with COVID. So he dropped both and replaced them with Trapped and Burning Train.
Okay.
Now, I like to hear about Bruce's experiences. I like to hear about his inspirations. I like to see him put cover songs in. It feels like you get to know a little bit more about him. You see him performing some of these songs that have clearly influenced him. The Northern Soul songs. All right, I am not a fan of the album they put out, but I really wanted to see it done live. All due respect to Night Shift and Don't Play That Song, I'm sorry, Bruce, you need to be playing rock and roll, because Trapped and Burning Train, my word, the audience reaction to those two, Kitty's Back into Trapped into Burning Train, that was a powerful 10 minutes of rock and roll. And so I'm, all due respect, sorry, Curtis, you had COVID, but I'm damn glad I got to see that, because that reminded me of the power of when Bruce pulls out something truly surprising. It's why, 12-year-old Mark, as we've talked about, right, goes to these shows, and I want Bruce to surprise me. So I have some sympathy with the people that are saying, come on, change it up. I want to be surprised. And that moment when he pulled out Trapped, my wife and I just screamed. We were like, yeah, wow, truly incredible moment. And that's that promise that he's made to us for decades of,
Yeah.
I'm going to blow you away.
So I did not realize that Curtis King had been sick. So that makes it makes me feel a little bit better, because I kind of, and this is ridiculous, but I almost feel sorry for the covers album that it's not getting any love. Like, oh, they're dropping it. Kind of like the Working on the Dream tour very quickly.
Yeah.
That the songs
like
lost some
songs.
love.
Yeah,
they moved away. So that makes a little more sense. I was sad I didn't get Burning Train. That is on one of my list of things to do. But talk about moments of surprise is, we're there in Houston, and he gets finished with Kitty's Back, and he says, I wrote this song, and I still don't have an effing clue what it's about. And so there was Dale Hosick, Jeff and Nancy Calloway, and Linda and I, and a friend, I cannot remember, Dale's friend. We were all in 6 seats together in this little section. And we started looking at each other. And when he went into If I Was the Priest, we lost our shit.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And, I had made a point of trying to be in the moment. Take a couple of pictures at the beginning, put my phone in my pants, not worry about it again. I did, just out of curiosity, all 3 shows. The first moment a band member stepped on stage, I hit start. And then when Bruce waved, I hit stop, just to see how long it was. And I did pull out my phone, pulled up in Twitter, and said, If I Was the Priest, and then tweeted it. So that was a beautiful surprise. I do think it was great. Chris and I were both talking. He has had a great Springsteen journey. He saw the River Tour in Oklahoma City. Then he was in Met with one of the, he did one of those 4-hour shows that was there when the couple got engaged. And so, but he had not watched Springsteen on Broadway till last summer, almost a year and a half ago, I guess now 2 years. For Father's Day, we pulled it up. And growing up just immediately spoke to him.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there Tuesday night, knowing that we're not going to, I'm at home, they're playing in Tulsa. And Chris says, I don't want to make you feel bad, but how pissed are you going to be if he walks on stage and says, hey, I want to things up. Let's start this off. And he does Growing Up.
Yeah, that's right.
So I was like, please don't do anything different. Please don't do anything wild.
Yeah.
But you got a surprise. Not only Trapped, but you got another little surprise at Seattle, didn't you?
Well, so here's the thing about Bruce. He never stops amazing me. Just something about, and I'm not the only person claiming this, right? This is not Mark Dempsey trying to, break exclusive news about my relationship with Bruce, right? This is something that thousands and thousands of people feel. It's a real, ridiculous, magical connection that we have with this guy. So I'd been away from my wife almost 6 weeks, longest we've ever been away. Married nearly 20 years, together 25 odd years. we've had 2 or 3 weeks away from each other, business and that kind of stuff. Nearly 6 weeks away. Without doubt, our joint favorite song together of Bruce's is Land of Hope and Dreams. It speaks to us. It particularly reminds us about our time when we upped and moved to Canada, right? It particularly talks to us about times that we have been determined to get through tough times together, on the train together. You'll need a good companion through this part of the ride. So we're sitting in a coffee shop in Seattle on the Sunday before the show. The show was the Monday. We're kind of talking about what do we want to see. And I said, hey, here we are together, 6 weeks away from each other. He should do Land of Hope and Dreams for us. Right? And Catherine, who pays some attention to what's been going on the tour, but not, I was like, he hasn't played it, by the way. Like, this has not come out. This is night 11, 12, whatever night Seattle was, right?
Yeah.
He hasn't played it. I'm not trying to get your hopes up. I'm not trying to say, oh, you know, they've been sound checking it the last 6 nights, or like, so they haven't played it. I've seen nothing. It wasn't in the rehearsal shows. I've seen nothing about it having been sound checked. I'm just being silly, right? Here we are together after 6 weeks, actually in a city that we went to on our honeymoon years and years and years ago in Seattle, right? He should put out Land of Hope and Dreams. And we were like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That Land of Hope and Dreams is coming out. So anyway, we get to the end of Badlands, and you know, Jesse, I'm something of a guitar nut. I'm a bit of a kind of, I pay attention to what guitar he's got in his hand at different times and what song it means coming. Fully expecting that at the end of Badlands, he was going to hold his guitar up and they were going to all take their bow, and then probably we were going to go into Thunder Road or something. Kevin brings out the very specific guitar with the capo in the right location. And I said to Catherine, I turned to her, I was like, oh, here we go. And she's like, oh, what song is this? And I was like, wait there. And off they go into Land of Hope and Dreams. I mean, I had to sit down, Jesse. I never sit down at shows. I literally had to sit down and compose myself, and we just held hands the whole way through, hugged the whole way through, singing our hearts out. Right. And yeah, together after 6 weeks away, tough trip. It was emotional to be away from each other that long. He didn't play it for us, clearly, but he kind of played it for us. It's beautiful.
I love that story. It is Better Days, Land of Hope and Dreams are my two, when people ask me what are your favorite Springsteen songs. So I mentioned that. So I would have the same thing. I had not put one and one together when you texted me, hey, Seattle, Land of Hope and Dreams. I was like, oh, how great. And you were like, yeah, I was there. I'm like, holy crap. What a wonderful surprise. We watched it last night. You know, a fan had filmed it. And
that's right.
It was, you know, seeing the E Street horns, and, you know, and it was interesting too, watching Jake walks down the steps.
Oh, he
gives his
it.
heart, then he walks back up, and then, you know, and like at one point, you know, he's doing he's doing this, just something amazing. I'm so glad you got it.
It was lovely. Just an emotional moment. Like I say, just stood there, held hands, hugged, took it in, almost let the song just kind of wash over us, right? Just a little moment of back together, enjoying Bruce together. Show was a great show without Land of Hope and Dreams, and then Land of Hope and Dreams just kind of just takes it over the top. One other quick thought about the set list. I love what they're doing with the encores, and I know it's getting killed, but man, that encore set it's kind of there for the person seeing Bruce for the first time, or seeing Bruce for the first time in a long time, right? That thinks, oh, do you know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see Born to Run, and I'd like to see Glory Days, and I'd like to see Dancing in the Dark, right? And it's there for the kid seeing Bruce for the first time that just thinks it would be incredible to see Rosalita, right? And okay, I'm sure if they're still doing exactly that run of 6 or 7 encores, by the time I've seen my 10th show in June, right? I'm sure I might. Come on, Bruce, throw Cadillac Ranch in there. But I think that encore set is just, again, beautifully constructed. It's a lovely, fun encore set, and speaks to the whole kind of, hey, remember my promise to you from 40 years ago? You're going to dance all night and you're going to leave sweaty and emotional and exhausted, and I can still do that to you at the age of 73.
So I'm so glad you brought that up. I just Googled really quick. My first show was in November 3rd, 2002 at American Airlines Center, the Rising Tour. The encore was Dancing in the Dark, Ramrod, Born to Run, I Fought the Law with Don Henley, My City of Ruins, Born in USA, Land of Hope and Dreams, Working on the Highway.
Huh.
I, at the point, didn't really know Ramrod, because I was a casual fan.
Yeah.
Didn't know City of Ruins, didn't know Land of Hope and Dreams, so it wasn't a 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
And now then, I mean, in fact, I've thrown this out. If someone has a bootleg of that show, I need it so bad, right?
Right.
But you think about it, okay. I think of the encore as dessert, right? Like, okay, all you good new Springsteens, you've eaten your vegetables. I've toned you the story I want to tell. We have talked about my mortality. We've talked about your mortality. We've talked about that the road in front of us is shorter than the road behind us. And now then, let's rock and roll. And so I'm glad he's thrown Thunder Road in there.
Oh yeah.
Because
yeah,
I think it's always better. But then, Born to Run, Rosalita, Glory Days, Dancing in the Dark, 10th Avenue Freeze Out, I'll See You in My Dreams. I mean, I could argue you just get those 7 songs, you're getting your money's worth. And so, yes.
I'm with you.
And I said this on Twitter recently, right? What I want people to remember is that the songs you say need to be off the set list are songs other people will say absolutely have to be on the set list. Like Trap means nothing to me. It's just the cover. It's just another cover. It's the same thing to me as Only the Song, right? Like to me, it's just another cover. You were thrilled you got it, right? I have been vocal and I will stand by. I never cared about Kitty's Back till I saw it in that Dallas show, and I apologized to Kitty's Back.
You should.
I'm like, right? This was, and our good friends at None But the Brave brought up a great point. They said it gives Bruce a chance to rest. Because you think about it, right?
Yeah.
While he's not playing and he's kind of directing everyone to go through their different solos, he's not singing. He's not having to play the guitar. Now, he isn't like he can sit down, but he at least is not doing, and it is such a beautiful, and I just recently interviewed a guy who is a huge jazz fanatic, and he has not seen any of the shows, and he has stayed away from all social media. He wants to go in blind.
Wow.
And I told him, after you go to the shows, I want you to come back on, because I want to specifically, because I think Kitty's Back could just as be in a jazz club, right?
Sure.
That they're just breaking it out.
For sure.
Yeah, it is. And so, yes, I think, okay, here's my obnoxious hat on. If you just don't like Joy, complain about that encore, because it's just there.
So, and okay, if you, I am in an increasingly small minority of people that would take Glory Days on a very regular basis.
Right.
If you hate Glory Days, if you're standing there, oh no, why hasn't he dropped Glory Days? Here's my suggestion. Turn around and watch the audience, because there's 27,000 other people in that venue losing their minds and dancing up and down and singing like they're teenagers, right? And the joy on people's faces in Glory Days. I did it in Seattle. I just kind of out of the corner of my eye, I caught some people dancing to my right hand side, and I watched most of Glory Days just kind of looking around at the back of the venue. It's magical.
Well, tell the story about Born to Run that you told me at Blue Goose. You watch Bruce.
Oh,
all show you watch Bruce.
Right. Yeah, it's true. I've been doing this in Born to Run for a long time. I don't take my eyes off Bruce in any show.
Niels, maybe. Okay, with Niels.
An exaggeration, right?
Yeah.
I like to just check out what Max is doing. Niels, you know my history with Niels.
Yeah.
I watch Niels an awful lot, and I did want to mention something about Niels, funnily enough, with what he's doing on one of the songs. So I'll certainly watch Niels, particularly if I'm down the front or in a good spot. I like to see what Niels is doing, because he's just such a dynamic mover and player. But I essentially don't take my eyes off Bruce. But for years now in Born to Run, particularly since they've been putting the house lights up in the indoor venues, I literally just take a few minutes and look around the venue. It's really the only time I take my attention off Bruce completely, because I love what it does to the audience. And I did it the other night in Glory Days in Seattle, and just watched people dancing. It's beautiful. It's just a beautiful thing. If you are a Glory Days hater, turn around and look at the people. That said, he just better not bring Waiting on a Sunny Day back into the show, because that thing can stay out.
I love Waiting on a Sunny Day. I would be thrilled if that happened. I don't need the kid singing, but I love that. Yeah. I am waiting for in 4 years, his grandchild to be on stage and sing Waiting for a Sunny Day.
They can do it for
yeah.
They can do it for Sam's kid. They certainly can do that. One quick note. This is not getting any attention on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I know I'm closer to this than almost anyone else that will go. Listen to Live 1975 to 85. Listen to The Promised Land. And listen to the solo that Nils played. That solo that Nils played of The Promised Land on the Born in the USA tour is a complex, full of harmonics, full of some of Nils Lofgren's greatest guitar trickery. Mm-hmm. No one seems to have noticed that he's doing it again on this tour. Mm-hmm. And he didn't do it the first few nights. The first time I think he did it was the Dallas show that I was at when Steve was out sick. Mm-hmm. So for the 2 decades now that the band has been back together with Nils and Steve on the same stage, whenever they've played The Promised Land, Nils and Steve they've kind of wandered over to the middle of the stage together and played this kind of simple 2-tone solo, which is a massive simplification of the original Promised Land solo that Nils has been playing, to the point where it used to quite annoy me, right? Why can't we have the incredible guitar solo from Live 1975 to 85? I can't tell you, Jesse, I nearly fainted with shock in Dallas the second I realized that Nils was about to pull out the 1985 solo because Steve wasn't on the stage. And in Seattle, he did it again. And I imagine that they've realized that actually this is a moment they can give Nils. And rather than Nils and Steve kind of come together for this insipid joint solo that they've been doing for 20 years,
yeah,
they're letting Nils have it. Please, everyone, listen to it. It's just beautiful. Like it's a proper Nils Lofgren guitar solo. It's complex. It's how they did it in 85. It's wonderful. It makes me feel like a 10-year-old. I can't believe I'm getting to see Nils do that. And good for him, because he just pulled it out of the bag in Dallas. And now I think it's going to be, for me anyway, a very important part of the shows I see in the future. And the Promised Land can stay in every show as far as I'm concerned now.
Yeah, I agree, and I will go check that out. Mark, this is amazing as always. I can't wait to visit with you again as we get closer. I know you and Gary will have all the hot takes on our Cowboys.
Listen to us.
We could spend another hour just talking about. Chris and I keep looking. Mike McCartney, if you have had a problem with your offensive coordinator, why have you not been speaking up?
Why didn't you fire him 2 years ago? Anyway, we're here to talk about Bruce. It's been a joy.
Yes.
I loved meeting you. I loved meeting your family, your friends.
Yeah.
We had a blast. I hope we get to meet together
I hope
again
so too.
soon.
I absolutely.
We will see you up the road.
Yeah. Come back after some European shows and share.
I'll let you know how we're doing.
All right, sounds good. I love you, my brother. Thank you. Listeners, go be safe, be kind. Tell me what you're thinking about the shows, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. There we go, another episode. I'm about to go through a couple of things where you can reach me and give me feedback. So if you want to skip this, I understand. But I do hope you check it out every once in a while. I'm available on Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW. The show is available at setlistingbruce. You can send me an email, setlistingbruce@gmail.com. You can send me a voicemail at 469-249-2442. I am currently doing a few other podcasts. Perfectly Good Podcast, John Hyatt from A to Z, where Sylvan Groth and I discuss every John Hyatt song in alphabetical order. My Babylon 5 podcast is Last Best Hope for Conversation, where Lou, Karen, and I discuss every episode of Babylon 5 in chronological order. I still am doing Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast with my brother in time, Charles Skaggs. And then finally, How Many Podcasts, the only podcast on the internet that counts, where my buddies and I discuss pop culture. You can go to our Patreon page and support the podcast for as little as $1 a month. You can go to our Facebook page, and please go to iTunes or wherever you get your podcast and leave a 5-star rating and review for all of the podcasts that I'm doing. It's okay if you don't listen to them, but if you subscribe and rate, it really will make my day better. Thank you, and I will talk to you soon.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.